Hi, Gina Covarrubias here. I am the engineering life coach. Today I want to talk to you about chronic overworking. I know many of you are going through this right now with your employers, and you can't exactly figure out how to say no even though you want to. So today I'm going to talk about chronic overworking, and what I'm going to do is help you understand why you can't say no even though you want to. I'm not going to get into tactics such as how to do it and what to say. That could be for a separate conversation. Today, I want to get you thinking up here about some of the reasons why you're afraid to say no. So let's get started with section 1. Why are you overworking? Because you tell yourself a list of thoughts here, some of which I've captured on this slide. My customers depend on me. I might be laid off. I don't have a choice. I have to do it. I'll get a bad review, or I won't get a raise, and so on and so on. And so we bombard ourselves with all of these thoughts around saying no to our employer. And the reason we do this at the bottom is because it makes you feel like you're controlling your employment status. So let's cover a couple of facts. Number 1, you work for whatever company you work for. We'll call them XYZ. Fact 2, you provide value to them. In return, they compensate you and give you benefits. That's a fact. Fact 3 is that employers cannot physically or mentally force you to work. They might request that you overwork. They might demand it. They might set expectations for you. They may or may not listen to your pleas. Have you even communicated to your employer that you're overworked, that you have too much to handle? Some of you would say yes, and some of you would say no. Your employer gets to decide what they want to do with that information. So as with all relationships, you have to use your judgment to decide how to react to other people's requests or demands, whether it's your employer, friends, or family, doesn't matter. Therefore, employers cannot force you to do anything. So I listed a couple of limiting beliefs here, which come from fear. We tell ourselves we have to. We tell ourselves they're making me. I better do this. I need to do this, and on and on and on. Those are limiting beliefs, and they keep you stuck. And what I want you to understand is that when you overwork, your employer will come to expect it. When you underwork, your employer will come to expect it. Now, by no means am I advocating that you underwork or underperform. But what I'm saying is you have to teach your employer the expectation that you have. We all know 1 or 2 people that we've worked with before who underperform and they underwork, but yet they still get to keep their job, and the employer expects them to underwork. Okay, it's the same thing with overworking. What I want you to understand here from section 1 is that the choice to overwork is yours. Nobody can force you. You need to own that choice. Moving on to section 2, let's talk about how to disempower your employer. Let's start with what employment is. What does employment actually mean? It's a relationship that you have. It's a relationship between 2 parties. It was, in the beginning, supposed to be a mutually beneficial agreement between you and your employer, through which you provide value, and in return, they give you value in the form of benefits and compensation. It's supposed to be an equal partnership between you and your employer. Employment is not a dictatorship, nor is it a friendship. Each side has to assume responsibility of fair contribution. So it is up to you to decide what your fair contribution is. One party can take advantage of the other if and only if the other party allows it. Your employer can only take advantage of you if you allow it to happen. You're responsible for communicating your limits to your employer. So what does this have to do with disempowering? Set boundaries to your employer. By setting boundaries and sticking to them, you put the ball in your employer's court, and what they have to do is figure out how to react to the fact that you have set your personal boundaries. So I've listed a few things here that they could consider. They could reinforce that you have to work so many hours. They could give you a poor review or a poor raise, switch out your job, write you up, fire you or lay you off. That is a possibility. Or they could respect the fact that you have set your boundaries, and they could take all that extra work and figure out for themselves how they're going to redistribute it. When you create and stick to a boundary, your employer becomes disempowered. You're forcing them to make a choice. Let's talk about empowering yourself. The first way we're going to attack this is on a personal level. How can you empower yourself on a personal level? The beliefs that we talked about a few slides ago about overworking are really not about your employer. On the surface, they're about your employment. But if we dig deep and unravel a couple of layers, all of these thoughts that you tell yourself about overworking have a common denominator. It's an indication of the relationship that you have with yourself. So all of these beliefs that you're telling yourself are a symptom of something bigger. And what is that? That is your self-worth. So starting on the left, fear comes from insecurity, which comes from self-confidence, which comes from your self-worth. So all of us are fearful. We all have insecurities. We're only human. That's normal. Where is your self-confidence? Your self-confidence comes from your self-worth, and your self-worth is how much you value yourself as a human being. So what I'm saying here on this slide is that others are going to treat you based on the way they see you treating yourself. And this table here at the bottom, I want you to look at these things that I wrote, and I want you to think about, how does this apply to me? How am I treating myself in my own life? Let's talk about empowering yourself from a professional level. You are employable, and I want you to think about this. How employable are you? That determines your employability as a professional. The key to your employability is knowing yourself inside and out. On this table, I have listed 3 different columns. One is about your growth mindset, another is about your resilience, another is about your problem-solving skills. And there were other things I could have listed. But I want you to start with this table and look at each of these squares and ask yourself, how does this apply to me? How does this apply to all of the professional experience that I've had in my past? No matter where you worked or how long, no matter how many times you've been fired in your life, it doesn't matter. The one thing employers cannot ever take away from you are your transferable skills. You need to know what your transferable skills are so you can articulate them to an employer at any given time, whether in the middle of COVID or not. It doesn't matter. You need to think about your employability. And too many people undervalue what they bring to the table. So I'm trying to get you to think about all the wonderful things and all the great strengths that you have that you may not realize. In conclusion, I want to recap the biggest 3 takeaways from each of the sections. Number 1, it's your choice to overwork, so own it. Number 2, disempower your employer by setting a boundary and sticking to it. Number 3, I want you to think about how you can magnify your own self-worth and your employability. So what I want you to know here is that you cannot say no at work because you do not recognize and value your self-worth, and you are undervaluing your employability. When you can dominate these 2 things, you will not be afraid to say no at work. And even if you get fired, it's not a problem. You are employable. You know how to find another job. I want to leave you with these 2 quotes that I want you to apply to your life as well. You have to be willing for other people to not like you so you can like yourself. The second one is that you deserve what you tolerate and you get what you reward. Thank you for joining me today. Please, please send me a note. Let me know if you're overworking, if it's overwhelming, if you want help with how to say no. I'm more than happy to help. You can reach me at gina@deliberatedoing.com, that's Gina, and visit my website for additional videos and a career blog, deliberatedoing.com. Thank you.